There's a moment, a thin slice of time between accusation and response. Someone questions your integrity, your worth, your intent. And before you even think, something inside you tightens. You want to defend yourself, to clear your name, to explain what you meant. It feels right, even noble. But that's the exact second you lose the frame. Have you ever felt that sting? The moment your truth suddenly sounds like a plea? Because the moment you start defending, you've already accepted their authority to judge you. You've stepped into their arena, under their rules. And Machiavelli would whisper, "He who explains submits." Most people defend because they believe the truth will save them. But truth means nothing when the audience is watching power, not logic. In the court of perception, silence wins more than innocence. When you explain, you shrink. When you stay still, you expand. The world doesn't respect the one who begs to be understood. It respects the one who can stand accused and remain unshaken. Think back to the last time you tried to justify yourself. How your words came out too fast. How you felt smaller even when you were right. That's not clarity. That's surrender. You were asking to be forgiven by people who never had the power to define you. The truth is, they didn't want an answer. They wanted a reaction. And when you react, you give them what they came for. The strong do something different. They pause. They let the accusation hang in the air until it starts to smell like desperation. They hold the silence like a blade, cold, precise, controlled. Because silence, when mastered, is not absence. It's domination. Power doesn't defend, it waits. It lets others expose themselves. Every second you refuse to explain, the tension grows and the room begins to turn. Eyes shift, doubts rise, and suddenly, the one who accused you starts to look unsteady. You said nothing, but they started to question everything. That's the real trick Machiavelli understood before anyone else. Control isn't in your words, it's in your stillness. And the moment you stop trying to be understood, people start fearing what you might say next. You defend yourself because you were trained to. From childhood, you were taught that if you just explain, people will understand. That fairness will protect you. That reason will win. But the world doesn't work like that. In power dynamics, explanation doesn't create clarity. It creates hierarchy. Every time you justify, you place yourself beneath the one you're trying to convince. You give them the authority to decide if your words are valid. And once you do that, you've already lost the frame. Machiavelli understood that perception is reality, and reality belongs to whoever controls the emotional tempo. When you rush to clarify, you're not speaking, you're reacting. And reaction is the language of the powerless. You think you're fixing the misunderstanding, but you're actually proving you need permission to exist. Watch any argument. The one who tries to prove innocence always looks smaller than the one who accuses. It's not because the accuser is right. It's because power belongs to the one who doesn't need to explain. The weak crave understanding. The strong command interpretation. That's why silence unnerves people. It forces them to create meaning without your help. And when people don't know what you're thinking, they overestimate you. That's how silence becomes your first weapon. Every defense dilutes your mystery, and mystery is the purest form of authority. People don't fear what they understand. They fear what they can't predict. So when you speak too soon, you kill your own aura. Machiavelli's real trick wasn't manipulation. It was restraint. The discipline to say less, to wait, to let others reveal their desperation while you stay composed. Because control isn't proven through words. It's proven through what you can withhold. The urge to defend is emotional. The need to protect your image, your reputation, your ego. But emotion is visible. And visibility is vulnerability. The moment they see you flinch, they know where to aim next time. So you must train yourself to resist that reflex. Don't justify, don't over-explain, don't try to clear the air. Let the fog stay, let it make them uncomfortable. Because the longer it lingers, the more they suffocate in their own assumption. Power is not in proving your innocence. It's in making your composure undeniable. And when the crowd realizes you didn't even react, something strange happens. They start to defend you. They start to doubt the accuser. Because instinctively, people side with calm. In chaos, the still one looks right. That's why Machiavelli would say, "Never fight to be believed. Let others do that for you." If this content makes sense to you, subscribe and stay connected. Thank you for being here. Machiavelli once said that men are more easily deceived by what they desire than by what they fear. And what people desire most is to be seen as right. That's why defending yourself feels so natural. It feeds the illusion that truth and reason can save you. But Machiavelli didn't care about truth. He cared about leverage. He understood that the human mind doesn't follow facts. It follows frames. The one who defines the frame defines reality. And every time you explain yourself, you accept someone else's frame. You're saying, without words, "You have the right to judge me." That's why his rule was simple. Never argue, never justify, never let emotion become evidence. Because the moment you do, you trade power for validation. Look at any conflict, online, at work, in relationships. The person who reacts first always looks weaker. They rush to prove innocence while the calm one becomes the authority by default. Silence forces projection. The less you reveal, the more people imagine. And imagination, Machiavelli knew, is more powerful than truth. He used it like a weapon. When you stay silent, people fill in the blanks with their own fears, insecurities, and guilt. That's why silence works. It turns their own mind against them. You become a mirror. Their accusation bounces back and exposes them. And they can't stand it, because what they wanted was not justice. It was control. The more you speak, the more they feed. The less you speak, the hungrier they get, until their obsession exposes them completely. This is the deeper law. Explanation strengthens the accuser. Silence strengthens you. That's why the most dangerous man in any room is the one who could say everything, but chooses not to. He creates a tension no words can match. People begin to watch him differently. They measure their tone, their phrasing, their courage. He doesn't command through fear. He commands through composure, because composure is contagious. When you're still, everyone else starts to lose their rhythm. They begin to reveal what they hide. Machiavelli's real genius was seeing that power isn't just about dominance. It's about emotional gravity. The world moves around the one who doesn't flinch. So the next time someone challenges you, resist the impulse to explain. Don't chase understanding. Let silence hang like smoke. Let discomfort do the talking. If you stay still long enough, they'll expose themselves trying to read you. And that's when you've already won. Because he who explains submits, but he who waits rules. At the deepest level, the impulse to defend yourself isn't about truth. It's about fear. You fear losing control of the story. You fear being misunderstood, misjudged, and mislabeled. But here's the trap. The moment you move to protect your image, you confirm that it's fragile. Machiavelli understood that the world is not ruled by fairness, but by perception. People don't follow truth, they follow confidence. And confidence, when held in silence, becomes myth. Every defense reveals an insecurity, and every explanation whispers weakness. Because people don't listen to what you say, they feel the energy you say it with. Defensiveness smells like fear, and fear changes the hierarchy of every room you're in. Even if no one speaks, they feel it. The energy of someone trying to be believed is the energy of someone already losing, and once that signal is felt, it cannot be hidden. Machiavelli's brilliance was in seeing that power doesn't need to shout. It only needs to endure. The man who can stay still while being accused becomes something the others can't comprehend. He stops being a target and becomes a mirror. And the mirror always wins, because it never swings first. It reflects. It exposes. It lets the enemy destroy themselves through overreaction. The loud one burns out. The still one absorbs the fire and lets it die in silence. That's why in every confrontation, the one who stays calm controls the tempo. The crowd shifts toward stillness. People look to the one who looks unbothered. It's not dominance through aggression. It's dominance through contrast. The more emotional they get, the more rational you appear. The more they explain, the more mysterious you become. And mystery, in the eyes of others, always equals power. Think of any leader, any person who holds influence. They are rarely the ones who justify. They speak less, they move less, and yet everything they do carries weight. Because people project certainty onto those who refuse to explain themselves. They fill the silence with reverence, fear, sand peculation. The less you give them, the more they build around you. That's the paradox. You gain influence not by controlling what people say, but by controlling what you respond to. And Machiavelli knew, control begins with refusal. The refusal to react, to rush, to clarify. The next time you're attacked, remember, the storm doesn't need your voice to end. It needs your stillness. Because when you deny them the reaction they expect, they lose their script. They start to stumble, to overreach, to reveal. Every word they say after your silence becomes a confession. That's why the smartest move isn't defense. It's exposure through restraint. Let them speak until their own words turn against them. Let them repeat the same point until it sounds desperate. Let the silence around you become so dense, it swallows their confidence whole. And when the moment feels like it's turning against you, don't fill it. Hold it. Because the longer you can sit in discomfort, the more the balance of power tilts back in your favor. Most people will never reach that level of control because they crave resolution. They can't stand the unease of being misunderstood. But here's the truth, Machiavelli would whisper. Being misunderstood is not a weakness. It's a weapon. It keeps you unpredictable, unreadable, untouchable. And if you can stand in that silence long enough, you'll see what few ever see. That you don't win by arguing. You win by outlasting. Stay with me. What comes next may change how you see every conflict in your life. Imagine a fortress standing on a hill at dusk. No banners, no guards at the gate, no sound, just stone and silence. The world throws storms at it, wind, fire, words. But nothing gets in, because the fortress doesn't react. That's what your composure should be. Still, unbothered, self-contained. The fortress of stillness isn't built with walls, it's built with discipline. Every time you resist the urge to defend, you add another stone. Every time you stay calm under attack, you raise the walls higher. Until one day, words that used to pierce now echo and fade. The fortress doesn't shout back at the storm. It lets the noise exhaust itself. That's what power looks like. Not control over others, but control over your own reaction. Machiavelli saw men destroy themselves not because of enemies, but because of emotion. The need to be understood, the hunger for approval, the addiction to being seen as good. He saw the rare few who did the opposite, who let silence protect them like armor. They were untouchable, because silence doesn't just shield you, it starves your enemies. Accusers feed on reaction. Critics feed on correction. The more you stay silent, the less oxygen they have. They swing harder, but the air gets thinner until they collapse under their own noise. That's the essence of the fortress: endurance. The ability to let the storm rage while you remain still, because every reaction you don't give is a battle you've already won. The fortress doesn't defend, it absorbs. It doesn't prove, it outlasts. Over time, the world starts to sense it. People approach differently. Their tone softens. Their eyes measure before they speak. You haven't said a word, but your presence has rewritten the rules. That's the Machiavellian paradox. The less you do, the more power you project. In a world addicted to noise, stillness becomes intimidation. Most mistake quiet for weakness, until they realize it's the silence of something unmovable. When you can hold that kind of stillness, even your absence speaks. Even your calm feels like authority. The fortress of stillness isn't a fantasy. You build it in every argument you don't join, every insult you don't answer, every judgment you don't chase. You build it with restraint, with silence, with control. And one day, when the noise rises again, you won't need to defend. You'll simply stand, and the noise will die against your walls. That's when you'll understand the truth Machiavelli lived by. The strongest defense isn't reaction. It's presence. If you're honest, you'll see it. How many times you've given away your power without realizing it. You explained yourself to someone who had already decided not to listen. You tried to convince people who only wanted to watch you stumble. You turned every accusation into a conversation, and every conversation into a trial. You weren't defending truth. You were begging for permission to exist. That's what defending yourself really is. Seeking validation disguised as reason. It's an emotional negotiation. You're saying, "Please understand me so I can feel safe again." But safety bought through explanation is never real. It depends on their approval, their mercy, their mood. You can feel it, the tightness in your chest, that heat rising when someone misunderstands you, and you rush to fix it. That's not control, that's fear. And it's the same fear that keeps you small, polite, apologetic. You start editing yourself, softening your words, dimming your energy just to avoid conflict. You start performing calm instead of being calm. But the truth is, calm can't be performed. It can only be built. Machiavelli would tell you this: you feel powerless not because people attack you, but because you keep responding. Every reaction feeds the system that drains you. Every attempt to explain reinforces the illusion that someone else holds the verdict on your worth. But they don't. The only way they gain that power is if you hand it over. And you hand it over every time you say, "That's not true." Every time you type, "Let me clarify." Every time you panic because someone misunderstood you. That's the cost of being ruled by the need to be seen as good. You think you're protecting your image, but you're really protecting your fear of rejection. It's not morality, it's survival instinct gone wrong. You've mistaken clarity for control. But clarity without authority is noise. Control without emotion is command. So the next time you feel that burning need to explain, stop. Feel it. Don't act on it. Let the discomfort pass through you. The more you can sit in that moment without reacting, the faster you reclaim yourself. Because what you call a misunderstanding, Machiavelli would call training. Every false accusation, every unfair judgment, they're tests. They reveal how solid your fortress really is. The weak rush to patch every crack. The strong let the storm test the walls. And when the dust settles, only one of them is still standing. You've been taught to fight misunderstanding with explanation. But explanation doesn't free you. It chains you to the judgment of others. The more you defend, the smaller you become, because every word says, "Your opinion matters more than my truth." Machiavelli would call this the tragedy of the nobleman, the belief that goodness needs to be proven. But power never argues its purity. It simply is. That's why those who carry real authority don't clarify. They define. They shape perception without asking for permission. The weak ask, "Do you see me correctly?" The strong declare, "This is who I am." That's the shift you must learn, from defense to definition. You don't owe anyone the comfort of understanding you. Their confusion is their problem, not your responsibility. When you stop trying to fix how others see you, you start shaping how they feel around you. That's real power, not convincing, but commanding. The man who refuses to defend himself forces others to create meaning in his silence. They project, they guess, they overthink. And in that guessing, you become myth. You become larger than their words, harder to place, impossible to predict. People respect what they can't read. They fear what they can't categorize. That's the Machiavellian edge. To be unreadable, not by deception, but by control. Because when you stop explaining, you create space. And in that space, your presence expands. Every moment you don't react builds tension. Every unanswered question becomes fascinating. You no longer live in their frame. You make them live in yours. You flip the power without saying a word. But there's a warning Machiavelli would whisper. Don't mistake silence for passivity. Stillness is not surrender. It's surveillance. You're watching, calculating, collecting energy. You wait until speaking serves a purpose, not an emotion. Because when you finally do speak, every word lands like a weapon. Calm, deliberate, unshakable. That's how you make language serve power instead of emotion. Most people speak to relieve tension. The strategist speaks to create it. Every sentence is measured. Every pause has intent. You don't react. You position. You don't argue. You define. You don't seek to be understood. You become undeniable. And slowly, those who once demanded explanations begin to censor themselves around you. They choose words more carefully. They wonder what you're thinking, what you'll do next, whether you're even affected at all. That's when silence turns into aura, the kind of presence that doesn't need validation because it is validation. Remember this, when you explain, they measure you. When you define, they follow you. When you defend, you descend. When you remain still, they rise and revolve around you. So the next time someone tries to pull you into the chaos of their misunderstanding, don't step down into it. Let them talk. Let them circle. Let them drown in their own noise while you stand above it, clear, composed, complete. Because in a world addicted to reaction, the rarest power is calm. And calm, when chosen, is the loudest form of dominance. Building the fortress of stillness isn't theory, it's training. You do it in small, invisible moments. When someone provokes you, pause for 3 seconds before speaking. Let the silence sting. Let them feel the weight of your calm. Most people rush to fill the silence because they're afraid of what it might reveal. You're not most people. The second rule, never explain twice. If your truth isn't clear the first time, let it stand. Repetition is a symptom of insecurity. Those who know their position don't rephrase it. They let misunderstanding rot on its own. Third, when you're attacked, lower your voice. not your standards. Slow your breathing, slow your tone, slow the room. Power lives in tempo. The faster they get, the slower you move. That's how you shift the balance. Fourth, practice invisible withdrawal. When people bait you, stop feeding them attention. Don't block, don't argue, disappear. Absence confuses louder than anger ever could. Finally, build ritual composure. Each morning before you face the world, remind yourself, nothing they say defines me. My reaction does. The goal isn't to win arguments. It's to train your nervous system to remain still when others lose control. Each breath you master, each silence you hold, another stone in your fortress. Because every day offers 100 chances to practice power in quiet ways. And each time you stay calm when you could have explained, you strengthen your throne of stillness. Maybe you've spent years explaining yourself to people who never deserved an explanation. And if you keep defending yourself, life will drain you slowly. You'll spend your days explaining your intent, your tone, your meaning to people who were never listening. You'll become addicted to justification, chained to every opinion, every misunderstanding, every whisper. That's the quiet death Machiavelli warned against. Not failure, but dependence. The need to be understood becomes the leash anyone can pull, and the more you pull against it, the tighter it gets. You stop living for truth and start living for approval. You measure your worth by how few people dislike you, and you call that peace. But peace built on the mercy of others is just exhaustion in disguise. It's the peace of the prisoner, calm only when the warden allows it. Machiavelli saw this centuries ago. He knew that those who fight to appear good often become weak, because when your goodness depends on witnesses, it's not virtue, it's strategy gone wrong. The cost of always defending is your aura. You lose the quiet power that makes people cautious. You become readable, predictable, safe. And safety is never respected. But when you master stillness, something shifts. You stop chasing fairness and start embodying certainty. People no longer test you. They test themselves around you. Your silence begins to feel like a verdict, and your calm becomes their mirror. They see their own instability reflected. That's why the Machiavellian never defends. He defines. He doesn't explain himself because he doesn't need to. His life is the statement. His reaction is the message. His composure is the argument. And when others lose control, his stillness becomes unbearable to them. They will call it arrogance. They will call it manipulation. But secretly, they will envy it. Because control is the one language everyone understands. Remember this: every time you defend yourself, you teach people how to control you. Every time you hold silence, you remind them they never could. So when the next accusation comes, and it will, don't rush to explain. Let them wonder. Let the noise burn itself out. Because the world doesn't need your defense. It needs your example. If this message touched you, write, "I choose clarity." At the highest level, you no longer defend. You no longer even need the fortress. You become something quieter, darker, untouchable, like a throne carved from shadow, invisible to those still chasing light. The shadow throne isn't built by victory. It's built by detachment. You sit there not because you won the argument, but because you no longer play the game. People feel your presence even when you say nothing. They sense the weight of someone who answers to no one. That's what real freedom feels like. Not needing to prove, not needing to explain, not needing to be understood. Just being. And when you reach that point, the noise outside no longer sounds like a threat. It sounds like distance. The world spins, but you don't. You've stepped outside the circle of reaction. Machiavelli would call this the final power, the one beyond politics, beyond reputation, beyond fear, the power of self-command. You don't live in defense anymore. You live in definition. You decide what enters your mind, what leaves your lips, what touches your peace. That's when you stop being part of the noise and start being the silence that swallows it. Thank you for listening. And when silence becomes effortless, we'll talk about what true control really costs.